What? Why you ain't subscribed yet, bro? It ain't nothing to subscribe, bro. It's free, bro. Hit the subscribe button. Join TOK right now. Don't be a lame. Join the gang. Stupid. Alright, come on. Let's hit the subscribe button. Come on. You still ain't hit it? Alright, fuck it. Let's get to the video. Good YouTube. It's your boy Corey, aka the one guy, aka Young Decadent. That's my slogan. Hey, you know, back another video, you dig? It's the 4th of July, and I'm missing the fireworks. Fucking making a video for y'all niggas. Let me get this shit off the screen. Today we watching 6 True Apartment Horror Stories Animated. Let's get it.
When I was 25, there was a short time I was staying at my aunt's. It was her, my 2 cousins, and I. She lives in a nice apartment complex, and her unit is on the lower level. Her living room has a lot of windows that she keeps open for fresh air and for her cats to people watch. Her unit happens to be on the corner near a grassy courtyard path. When I had first moved in, I noticed a man who gave me an off vibe. My cousins and aunt said he lived upstairs and 2 units over, recovering from hard drugs that permanently messed him up. His parents paid for him to stay there as they didn't want him with them. They also said, other than hearing him mumble and say weird things, no one had ever had an issue. My aunt works nights and leaves at 3 a.m. My younger cousin works nights and leaves at 2 a.m. That usually left my same-aged cousin and I, the only 2 there, until we leave for work around 8. For context, it is a very open living room to dining room plan. My aunt always had people staying over, so she has a second couch in the dining room in place of a table. This is where I slept. She stayed on the one in the living room. My aunt has also never been one to lock her doors, until this incident. One night, I'm on my phone, trying to sleep at about 1 a.m. and hear a man yelling. He's yelling, "Don't shoot," and banging on the door to the right of ours. 2 male college students live there and just told him he had the wrong apartment and to leave. He says sorry and walks off. I am looking through the kitchen window, which is in direct line of sight from my couch bed, and it's the weird neighbor who sees me and grins. He then walks back to his home. I was unsettled, but not enough to wake anyone else up over it. Told my family nonchalantly the next day, and LOL, that was weird.
Who the fuck just leave their windows open in the middle of the night? Who does that shit? And she don't leave her doors locked either? Like, what? That's dumb.
My cousin and I watch a movie and head off to bed. I have a very hard time staying asleep, but I woke up this time to the feeling of someone watching me. I check my phone and it's around 3:30 a.m., so I know that it's not my aunt or cousin. I sit up and figure I'll go watch TV on my aunt's couch since she was gone already. The feeling gets stronger as I am in the living room. Then, I see the shadow of a person standing still in the grass courtyard looking in. I froze. I immediately go back to my couch to get my phone. As I do, the person is gone. I am now trying to calm myself down and think of waking my cousin up when I hear the creepy man's voice. He is now at the kitchen window, which looks out directly in front of her front door. I drop to the floor, out of his line of sight, and start frantically trying to call my cousin. The man is now saying things at the window front door like, "I'm not going to hurt you," and "I'm unarmed," over and over again. His face is up against the window. Then he starts talking about wanting to pet the cats he saw through the window. I can't get a hold of my cousin. It's been 20 minutes of this at this point. In this completely clown shit situation, I don't have many options. I could jump up and run for a knife, but I'd need to go to the kitchen. I could try to respond and ask him to leave, but I've learned when you underestimate crazy, you lose every time. I now hear him knocking and knocking while repeating his nonsense. I'm doing that ridiculous looking army crawl snake slither across the floor down the hall now. I see the door handle start to turn. I'm about to jump up when my cousin bursts out of his room directly across from the front door. Now he's not the biggest guy, but boy, he was intimidatingly mad at the circus show taking place at his front door. He starts yelling at the guy that he needs to get the fuck off his porch and that he's calling the cops. The man tries to say, "I'm unarmed. I'm not going to hurt you. Don't be afraid." My cousin goes off and yells, "That's fucking dandy. It's 4 a.m. You need to leave or I'll call the cops. What the fuck is wrong with you?" So the guy backs up with his hands in the air and leaves. Needless to say, we didn't go back to sleep. My aunt was called, who called the apartment manager. The next day, when I came home from work, his parents were there, packing moving boxes in a truck from his place. Maybe he was trying to get me to open the door by seeming friendly. Maybe he had a bad trip and really wanted to pet a cat to feel better. We will never know.
Bro, fuck that. Like, he just, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. That nigga's weirdos. Niggas just be
This
weirdos.
happened to me a long time ago when I was a kid.
Let's be for real.
I was home alone one hot summer evening. My parents were out on business and I was enjoying the time alone to do whatever I wanted. Now, we lived in a 2-bedroom first-floor apartment at the time. From the front entrance was a hall that opened into the kitchen. To the left at the far end of the kitchen was my room, and to the right of the kitchen was the living room, which connected to a small den.
Okay.
My parents' bedroom was also connected to the living room off to the right. It was around 9 p.m. when I just finished dinner and began my nightly routine of taking out the trash, brushing my teeth, and shutting down for the night. Before retreating to my room, I remember opening all the windows in the kitchen and living room so that the house would cool down over the night.
That was dumb.
The windows were all barred, so I wasn't really too worried about any funny business happening. Now, I'm a little bit of a security freak, so all the doors in the house have locks, including my bedroom and the bathroom. I shut off all the lights and went to my room to watch TV. Right at around midnight, I dozed off. I had a really weird dream, or rather nightmare, of someone knocking on my door with the knocking getting progressively louder. It was really odd because in the dream I was laying in my bed, but I couldn't move. The knocking got so blaringly loud until...
Have you ever had sleep paralysis? I heard people have sleep paralysis, but I never had that shit. I heard that shit scary as shit.
I couldn't stand it. Then I heard a scream and woke up. My heart was racing and I was sweating a little, but no damage done. I looked around my room and glanced at my alarm, which read 4 a.m. Seeing nothing really out of the ordinary, I brushed the dream off and just laid back down. I closed my eyes and suddenly heard knocking on my actual bedroom door this time. A little delirious, I thought I had slipped back into my nightmare. My eyes shot wide open and I just sat up and stared at my door, trying to listen. There were 3 slow knocks that followed. My very first thought was my parents were back early with food or something and they wanted me to have some. My dad was pretty notorious for knocking on my door when he got home late at night to check on me, sometimes without even calling my name first. I always told him that it really spooked me out and he should announce himself when he knocks, but he always forgets. I got up and began walking towards the door, but something felt wrong. When my parents come home, there's usually commotion. They might be having a conversation, or I can hear their keys jingling, my mom's heels, footsteps, something. This time, however, it was dead silent.
That's what happens when you leave your fucking windows open. Stop leaving your fucking windows open. Invest in the fucking gun. That's what you need to do.
I stopped halfway to the door and then called out. Who is it? Who's there? No answer. I opened my mouth to call out again, but before I could get the first word out, there were several rapid knocks on the door. Very persistent knocks, as if it was an emergency, and whoever was on the other side needed to get in now. I felt a lump in my throat. My mind was racing, and the first thing I thought of was that what if it was my dad on the other side and he's in some kind of trouble? What if he's choking and can't speak? What if he needs my help? I was frozen in place and couldn't move. I then said, "Who is it? Who's there?" Once more. Again, nothing. "Please say something. Please tell me who it is. It's not funny," I said. A few moments of silence went by. Suddenly, it was as if someone just threw their whole weight into the door. Rapid, loud bangs began attacking the door.
Why are you still just sitting
Kicks,
at the door,
punches. It was as if there were 3 people on the other side trying to bang the door down. It was so loud that I started crying. I found myself jumping backwards and crawling to the corner of my room. The violent banging went on for a few more moments, and then silence. I sat in the corner, frozen. My hands were covering my mouth and tears were rolling down my cheeks. I thought this was the end. I was absolutely shocked the door stood still because when I heard the first bang, I thought the frame would come crashing down and whatever was on the other side would instantly enter and end my life. I sat there for a period of time that felt like an eternity. Suddenly I heard clinking, the sound of metal brushing into each other. I knew that whatever was on the other side was going through the silverware drawer. If my life didn't end already, this was my last chance, because I knew I wouldn't get another one. I sprang up and climbed under my dresser sitting against my window. I threw open the curtain and shoved the window down, and then climbed out as quietly as I could. I fell to the sidewalk and ran to the police station down the road. I was absolutely hysterical and told them what had occurred. Later that night, my parents were called, as they did an investigation of my house. The only things out of place were a cigarette butt left at the base of my bedroom door, and there was also a butter knife on the kitchen table. In the following months, we moved out of that apartment, and thankfully I can say that was the most excitement I'd ever been through. I soon went to college, graduated, moved to a new state with family nearby, and life is continuing as normal. I'll never know if it was a prank that night or if someone was actually out to get me.
Nigga said a prank. Bitch, who's pranking you in the middle of the night? Banging on your door, going through your drawers with your knives and shit. Bitch, shut the fuck up, bitch.
But whatever.
The fuck
Whoever
you mean
are,
is a prank?
let's definitely never meet.
This happened a long time ago. At the time, I was living alone in a first-floor apartment. My
gotta go take a
girlfriend had
shower
been
and
sick
shit,
at the
man.
time and
Got
ended
shit
up
to
at
do.
the hospital dealing with a rare disease. She recovered fine from it, but during those weeks, my life was pretty much go to work, go to the hospital to be with her, come back to the house for dinner, and then bed. It was a Friday night, and I was alone, so I decided to distract myself by reading and watching some videos on YouTube. Hours passed, and at 3 a.m. I was in bed with my iPad in hand, almost falling asleep. Then I heard it. I knew that sound pretty well. You see, outside right in front of my bedroom door, there was a long corridor that leads directly to the kitchen. This apartment was in a building built in the 50s, and the kitchen door was old and had become slightly bent. That meant that whenever you turned the doorknob to open the door, it would snap out of its place with a distinct clack sound. That was the sound I had just heard. A lot of thoughts ran through my mind in that moment. Had I dreamt it in my semi-sleeping state? Or maybe the sound was real, but what happened was that the doorknob internal mechanism broke and it opened by itself. Or, of course, maybe someone was in my house and they had just opened the door.
Man, always assume
At this
the worst.
point, my heart was racing and I started considering.
Hold on, y'all. Scary shit. I don't like watching scary videos and shit. It gets me paranoid. I start tweaking and tripping out. But, you know what I'm saying? That motherfucker right here. You feel me? It's right there. But we gonna get back into this shit.
My options. I had a broomstick.
Always expect the worst. When you're in situations like this, bro, you always gotta expect the worst and prepare for the worst scenarios, bro. That's what you always gotta do, bro.
Next to
Forget
my
anything else.
bed. You may ask why I had it there, and to be honest, I had it exactly because I lived alone and thought one day I might be in a situation like this where I would need a weapon. My girlfriend even used to joke about it, but I guessed that my paranoia was now paying off in the most unfortunate of situations. So I decided I was going to take the stick on one hand and grab my cell phone in the other. I would open my bedroom door while calling 911, and if no one else was in the apartment, I would just apologize to the operator on the other end of the line and explain the situation. However, back in those days, my cell phone wasn't yet a smartphone, and it had this feature I found interesting, even though I never used it. If you pressed on a couple of specific keys, it would start ringing like someone was calling you. It was meant to be used when you wanted to simulate you were getting a call to get out of a boring conversation or a tough situation. Clumsily, I pressed on those keys and the phone started ringing. I quickly shut it up, but now it had become clear inside the apartment that I was awake. If someone was outside my bedroom, they'd certainly heard it. What was going to happen? I stopped for a few seconds to hear my surroundings. Nothing. It was dead quiet. I decided to continue with my plan. I dialed
What is that stick
911
gonna
with
do,
one
though?
hand raised the boomstick with the other, and quickly opened the door. As soon as I did that, someone sprinted in front of me in the corridor and quickly got into the kitchen, closing the door behind them. I screamed, "Hey!" and started pursuing, but a split second later I thought, stop, what if there is someone else in the apartment? What if another intruder sneaks up on you from behind? In front of me was the corridor to the kitchen, but on my left was another corridor that led to the living room and office.
Good fucking
The
thinking.
office had the light on, so the intruder had been there, but I didn't know if he had company. I took a step back into the entrance of my room so that I wouldn't be caught off guard. "Sir, are you there?" The 911 operator was calling me on the phone. I quickly explained to him what was happening, gave him my address, and he told me the police was on its way. They had a patrol car nearby, so I should just wait. Then he hung up. The apartment was dead silent. I was terrified. There were only 3 things I had been able to notice in the intruder. He had a light-colored sweatshirt with horizontal black lines, dark hair, and he smelled really bad. In fact, the smell was still in the apartment and I could still sense it. The police arrived after 7 or 8 minutes, which felt like ages. The apartment door was next to the bedroom, so I managed to quickly approach it and unlock the door to let them in. I explained what had happened to the police, and they said that we should go through the whole apartment and check every single hiding space. They had seen situations before where a burglar had hidden himself for a long period, even after the house owners had called the police, to later attack them. The apartment wasn't that big, so it was easy to conclude that no one else was hiding there. In the kitchen, it was obvious what had happened. It had these large windows that faced the back of the building where we had a small
Always the
community
windows,
garden.
bruh.
I had left one of the windows open, and next to it, on the outside, there was a large drain pipe along the wall. The intruder used that pipe to climb to my window and get in. The police left to go look around the neighborhood for someone matching the description of the sweatshirt I described. While they were gone, I could still smell that horrible odor the intruder had left in the apartment. After around 20 minutes, they came back. They couldn't find anyone. The burglar was long gone. Luckily, he didn't have the chance to steal anything while he was in my apartment, but the audacity. I mean, he must have seen the light on in my bedroom through the edges of the door, and still he tried walking past it to steal something from the office. I didn't sleep that night. In the morning, I went to the garden in the back to try to find any further clues about the intruder, but couldn't find anything. A neighbor in the building next door was at the window and I called out to her. I told her what had happened. She just smiled and said, "Well, welcome to the neighborhood. We all have stories like that in this place. You should never leave your windows open, and maybe you should consider getting some bars to protect them." The next day, I bought a motion alarm and installed it in the kitchen. I never had another experience like that in the apartment, but, to be honest, I never slept the same way in that bedroom, traumatized by those events. At night, I would fear
Invest in the
hearing again the sound
Glocky.
of the kitchen door snapping out of place. A few years later, I moved out to a larger apartment in another neighborhood. This time it was on the 7th floor, so much harder for intruders to get in through the windows. So, to the intruder that came into my apartment and smelled really bad, let's not meet ever again.
This happened a few years ago, but still freaks me out when I think about how differently it could have turned out. My hub's
Last story,
baby and
y'all.
I used to live in the not greatest apartment complex. There were 3 sections of the complex with a total of 6 apartments, 3 on top, 3 on bottom, in 2 different buildings within each section. I lived in the upper level, middle apartment on the 2nd building in the 2nd section. I got along with my neighbors fine. We actually all moved into our apartments within a few weeks of each other. To my left is a woman we will call Barb, in her 50s, and lives alone. Barb is a drinker and a big participant of any substances that make her feel good. Has a rotation of man friends that come and go. All fine by me. She gives me no issues, so
She's
I
living life.
really don't give a fuck about what she does. But it needs to be mentioned for story purposes. I already mentioned that these weren't the best apartments. They were income-based, old, and cheap. I'm pretty sure the walls were insulated with newspaper if they had any insulation at all. So you could hear basically everything from both surrounding apartments and a lot from the units below. Only time it really became an issue was during nap time and nighttime, when something would either prevent my 1-year-old from sleeping or wake him up. It didn't happen often, and when it did, I was able to go knock on the noise culprit's door and handle it with no issues. Since my child was still a baby, and I was constantly exhausted, 90% of the time his bedtime was my bedtime. Our bedrooms were on the opposite end of the apartment, from living room, kitchen, balcony, Barb's apartment. We also slept with both a noise machine and a fan to drown out any noise disturbances during the night. This particular night, though, my husband was off work and we decided to watch a movie. There was a party going on in the first building of our section. Barb
Why
was
Barb look like
friends
that,
with
though?
the party throwers, and we could hear her in and out of her apartment door several times, as well as all the party people who were outside smoking. At some point during the movie, I fell asleep using my husband's lap as a pillow. Around 2 a.m., loud laughing from Barb's apartment wakes me up. I get up to pee and brush my teeth before coming back to kiss my husband goodnight and get in bed. Do my business and making my way back up the hall to the living room from bathroom to tell my husband goodnight. I hear knocking on Barb's door, followed with what sounds like her door exploding off its hinges and flying into the wall that separates her apartment and ours. My husband and I both say what the fuck at the same time and kind of just freeze. We hear Barb and a man talking, and it sounded like normal talking. They weren't yelling or anything, so we chalk it up to Barb and her guest having a little too much fun at the party and shrug it off. I get in bed and quickly fall back asleep.
So
No
where your
more
husband sleep at,
Then
bro?
10 minutes after getting into bed, I wake up to what sounds like heavy furniture being body slammed coming from Barb's apartment. Irked as fuck from the second slumber disturbance, and knowing this is going to wake my kid up, I make my way to the living room, planning to put my slippers on and knock on Barb's door, and kindly ask her to shut the fuck up. I first walk out onto my balcony to smoke a cigarette, while hoping she realizes how loud whatever the fuck she's got going on is, and fix it without being asked. The body slamming furniture only gets even louder while on the balcony, so I assume they've worked their way through her apartment and are now body slamming her bedroom furniture now. Even more irritated now, I decide Barb's too blitzed to realize how loud she's being, and I'm going to have to remind her that none of us are deaf in my apartment. So she was going to have to move her furniture fight somewhere else, or reschedule for normal furniture fighting hours, which are obviously during the day. I stand up and take a few steps towards Barb's bedroom window, where our small bucket for cigarette butts sits on the ledge of my balcony. Her bedroom window and the closest edge of my balcony to her window are only inches apart. She could easily crawl out of her window and onto my balcony, and vice versa. And that's when I hear it. Muffled screams like someone is holding a hand over her mouth, and a man's voice say in a very low voice, "If you don't shut the fuck up, I'm going to kill you, you fuckers. So you're gonna fuck me and like it."
Yo! This just changed for the worse! Barb getting raped!
Oh fuck is my first thought. I fly inside the sliding door from my balcony and grab my phone to call 911 while telling my husband Barb is in trouble. He goes out and bangs on her door. Nobody comes, and it's locked because he tried the door handle after not being answered. I'm standing between the living room and kitchen on the phone with 911.
She's getting
And
raped.
husband walks outside and leans over to see if he can see anything through Barb's windows. The blinds are closed, but a couple of blind slats are broken, leaving a small crack big enough for my husband to see someone lying on the floor halfway in her bedroom and halfway into her bathroom, and another person standing over them. He tells me, and I relay it to the 911 operator, while also adding, if the police aren't here soon, we're gonna bust the door down ourselves. She calmly asked me not to do anything like that, to stay on the line, and that the police were en route and would arrive soon.
Police be taking too long,
About
huh?
2 minutes later, we hear several pairs of boots coming up the apartment stairs to get to the second level of our apartment, and then loud pounding, knocking with, "Police department, open up!" I crack my front door to peek out and tell them we can still see two people in the back bedroom of Barb's apartment. There are 4 uniformed police officers with their guns drawn, and the one standing in my front door tells me to go back inside and lock the door. Yes, sir. I go back inside and straight right inside my balcony door to watch for anything. like Barb trying to escape the man or the man trying to escape the cops. Hear another round of police pounding at Barb's door going unanswered, and then the sound of the door being kicked in. Fire and rescues have shown up by this point, and the whole complex is lit up with lights coming from emergency vehicles. We hear a small scuffle, and then the screen door of her apartment creaks open. I look out of the peephole and see a man in handcuffs being led down the stairs, and then EMT coming up the stairs with a stretcher. A few minutes later, we hear the screen door creak open again, and I see EMT carrying a stretcher with someone in it, and open my door. Barb is unconscious and in bad shape. Her face and head are bloody and swelling, and exposed skin of her arms are
Not my
already
nigga
bruising.
Barb.
As I'm staring at her in the stretcher, going down the stairs in disbelief,
She was
the
just
same
living her best
police
life.
officer that told me to get back inside and lock my door walks out of Barb's apartment and asks if he can speak to my husband and me. I say yes and invite him inside, where he thanks us for calling 911 and tells us he has little doubt that we saved Barb's life. Asks us what we heard, and I reiterate the whole story from beginning to end as he takes notes. He thanks us again and leaves. Barb calls me about a week later from the hospital to thank me. I ask her how she is, and she tells me that she has a fractured skull and bleeding on her brain, broken cheekbone and jaw, broken ribs, and lots of bruising all over her body, but feels lucky to be alive, and thanks me
Damn,
again.
he was beating her ass.
She also tells me the man is someone she has known for several years.
What the
that he had
fuck?
showed up at the party right before she went home to her own apartment and was mad she didn't want to sleep with him, and even madder that she had been super flirty with the POC at the party. Several months later, the ADA prosecuting the man calls me and asks me to tell her everything from that night. So I tell her, from start to finish too. She asked me if I would be willing to testify in court, and I tell her whatever she needs to lock that animal up. A couple of weeks after that, I come home and have a summons on my door to be a witness in the case, but the court date listed is already passed. I call the ADA back and explain both worried about how me not testifying hurt the case and putting him away, and also if I had a warrant out for my arrest for not showing. She tells me that the date was wrong, but that I'm also not needed. Catch up with Barb a few weeks after that, and she tells me that my recorded call to 911 was used during court, and that the guy got 15 years in prison.
Damn.
So, I'm...
That's crazy. Not my nigga Barb, man. That's why niggas need to invest in a... You know what I'm saying? In a motherfucker... You know what I'm saying? But... I hope y'all like this video. Like, comment, subscribe for more videos. It's me, your boy Corey, aka the White Cop. Could feel like somebody in my crib now. Now I gotta go search our house, man. Like, comment, subscribe for more videos. Keep God in your life. Peace. Type shit.
I want to be the greatest in the world, not for the money and the fame and the girls, not for the car keys or the jet skis, but the vacation to the West Indies.